Welcome. You're listening to Sports Econ 101, the show where we discuss sports topics from a business perspective. I'm your host, Edward Brown, along with my co-hosts, Russell Jackman and Mike McDowd. At each commercial break, we're going to ask a trivia question. And today's trivia theme is miscellaneous trivia. And in the next segments, we are going to have actually two guests with us. Steve Travers, a friend of the show who's been on a few times, and a newcomer, Jordan Birnbaum. I think I pronounced that correctly. And we got a lot to cover. We got the Yankees-Dodgers World Series, which it hasn't been since the 80s, I think. And I think even though a lot of us kind of got tired of the Yankees-Dodgers all the time, for baseball, I think it's really good because Ohtani and the fact that it's two major markets. It's not
1981, Edward. That's the last time the Dodgers and Yankees played, and the Dodgers swept them 4-0.
Yeah, that's Steve Garvey was still on the team, wasn't he? Or did he get traded to the Padres?
No, he was on the team.
He was on the team. Okay.
And their reliever was Steve Howe.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
Rookie left-hander. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember. And let's see. Yeah, this actually, it's kind of interesting with Ohtani. Could be the first time since Frank Robinson to have a player win the MVP in each league. Could be. We'll also talk about Brandon Ayuk. Tears his MCL and ACL after signing a large contract, and $76 million is guaranteed. Not bad, huh? That was pretty smart of him. He goes, let's see, when should I tear my MCL and ACL? Yeah, I think I'll do it after I sign the contract. Obviously, he didn't do that on purpose. All right. When we come back, we're going to introduce our guests, and then we're going to talk a lot of baseball, football, and then I think basketball season's coming up, which is Russ's favorite topic. All right, stay with us. You are listening to Sports Econ 101. Don't touch that dial. We are going to be right back. Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. I'm Edward Brown along with Mike McDowd and Russell Jackman. And in fact, Mike, why don't you introduce our first guest?
All right, I'll do that for you, Edward.
That's okay. Go ahead.
By the way, before we get further, I'm wearing my Cal shirt. That's the California Golden Bears. Do you know what CAL stands for? Constantly always losing.
Yeah.
Boom, boom, boom. All right, go Bears. All right, my standing by on the Sports Econ 101 live line via his own underground bunker is a good friend of mine, a good friend of the show.
Yeah.
His name is Stephen Travers. He is first of all, a wonderful human being. Second of all, a phenomenal writer, author, and just all-around great American guy that I love. And, so happy to have him on the show because Steve provides so much knowledge in so many different subjects. He's written 2 books about the Los Angeles Dodgers, knows everything about baseball. Steve, welcome to the show. So happy to see your joyous, loving little face this morning.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Edward.
Okay. All right. So, Mike, what did you, well, here, let's Steve, let's get right into it with regard to the Yankees Dodgers.
What's your thoughts?
Well, as we were discussing earlier, it's the first time that they have faced each other since the 1981 season when this is how far back it was. In 1981, I was a professional baseball player and was still a member of the St. Louis Cardinals when I watched the Dodgers beat the Yankees in Game 6 at Yankee Stadium, sitting at Marin Joe's restaurant with my friend Pat Muddy Waters. So that's how far back it goes. But they played 12 times. A tremendous rivalry that was a huge rivalry in New York and carried over to the bi-coastal era and was every bit as lively and great, if not better, when it was LA versus New York as opposed to Brooklyn versus New York.
Yeah, my dad was we grew up in Brooklyn. Well, he did, and I was born there. But my dad was a huge Dodger fan and a Brooklyn Dodger fan. And boy, I tell you, it was only 1955 that he was happy. He hated
1955. They had lost to the Yankees every time they played them, which was numerous times between 1941 and 1953. And the Dodgers had great teams. Problem was the Dodgers were built for Ebbets Field, so they were very strong at Ebbets Field. But when they went on the road, particularly the spacious confines of Yankee Stadium, they were not as effective. They could not beat Whitey Ford, but they finally got the edge on the Yankees and beat them in 1955, and that was an enormous moment for them. But it was the last great moment for the Brooklyn Dodgers before they went to Los Angeles.
Is it fair to say, Steve, this is the quintessential Cinderella World Series? This is what baseball wants. This is what the network wants. You got two of the best storied franchises in the history of baseball, the Los Angeles Dodgers and the New York Yankees. Isn't this what everybody wants, except for if you're not a Giants or Yankees fan or Dodgers fan?
Yeah, this is just a perfect World Series. I mean, it's following COVID and everything that we've had, and a few sort of lackluster postseasons. Not only is it New York versus Los Angeles, but it's the two marquee players in baseball, the American Aaron Judd and the Japanese star Shohei Ohtani, and then the Dominican star Juan Soto. And, and then it's the both teams are play in iconic stadiums. They draw huge crowds, and they are enormous draws on television. So I think we're hoping that it's going to be a competitive World Series. Personally, I'm rooting for the Dodgers, but if I had money on it, I'd probably figure the Yankees to be a slight.
Yeah, didn't COVID kind of take the wind out of the sails of baseball for a few years?
Well, and if you look at the Dodgers called themselves world champions of 2020, which was just a joke. I mean, they won the extended spring training championship.
Let me throw in a counterpoint here. I absolutely cannot stand this World Series. I'm calling it the thank God the NBA starts tonight World Series. I am just going to watch the results. I am not going to watch any of the games. And to root for the Dodgers means you're rooting for Darth Vader, the evil empire, big money, a team that just spends money to make a championship. That is the worst thing you can root for.
That's what the Yankees were with Babe Ruth for many years.
Come on.
Yeah. I like seeing the small teams being competitive. When you just see the two giant wallets facing each other for a championship, it's nothing but problems for Major League Baseball.
Okay, that's a bogus argument. Listen, that tells me you don't like baseball. Would you watch the Lakers and the Celtics play in the NBA Finals? Let me ask you that.
That's a good question. If the Lakers face the Celtics again, I would have a hard time picking who I'd root for.
Come on.
I would.
Sports.
I would.
It's
because I hate them both.
Well, I mean, if you just like a team,
I know that there's a lot of people that are very turned off by this World Series because they don't want to see two big money teams just face each other.
Well, I was like that for many years. I mean, it used to kind of upset me when it was Yankees, Dodgers, and all that kind of stuff, because it happened. It just seemed like it happened too much, especially like in the late 70s. And so it was frustrating for me too. But it's been, 43 years. So that's where I think it's different.
Not 43 years since the Dodgers won the World Series.
The Dodgers haven't won since 81.
No,
I know.
they won 88.
Not since
88.
Add another 3,000 years on that, and that's still too early for the Dodgers to win that.
Well, again, now for the audience, just so you know, Russ is a huge Giants fan and absolutely hates the Dodgers, and I'm sure he hates the Yankees too, right?
I have absolutely no love for the Yankees. I couldn't be less nonplussed. Any other team that would have gone to the World Series, I would have been much happier to root for, including Cleveland or the Mets or anyone else. I would have been rooting for in this series rather than the Dodgers versus the Yankees. And I think I'm not alone.
You cannot take away the historical significance of the New York Yankees. Babe Ruth, Lou Gehrig, Mickey Mantle. It is America's team, whether you like it or not. They are the pinnacle of base. They are the pinnacle of baseball, and that's just a fact. You can't argue that. And the Dodgers are unfortunately a team that, if you're a Giants fan, you don't like either. But they're also a very, very good baseball franchise. Another fact. So, and to further listen, the Dodgers have an asterisk on that 2020 World Series. I don't even consider that a World Series championship. That's an asterisk.
The only thing I would say well, one, I would say Clayton Kershaw is a homegrown Dodger, and I'd like to see him get at least an inning in somewhere in this series, so he and if they win it, so he could have some aspect of being a champion. And Aaron Judge is a homegrown player for the Yankees, so not everyone has been bought.
Don't we wish Aaron Judge were the Giants?
That was one of the reasons my dad always hated the Yankees, is because they seemed to just spend money like crazy and just buy their championships. And back then, they didn't have any salary cap, I don't think, right? Okay. Hey, guys.
Well,
ready?
yeah.
Okay, you ready for our first trivia question here? Here we go. All right. And again, just as a reminder to the team here, don't answer yet if you know the answer, because when we want to give the audience a chance to do this. And, we used to just ask sports questions, but then I heard from people, it's like, you know what, let's have some, even though it's a sports show, let's have some questions other than sports for just the trivia contest. Okay, so which bone are babies born without? And of course, I just became a grandfather, so I had to ask a baby question. All right, which bone are babies born without? All right, so obviously that means later on they get it. Email Edward at sportsecon101.com. The answer to that question. We'll see if you know the answer to that one. Again, one more time. Which bone are babies born without? All right, stay with us. You're listening to Sports Econ 101. Don't touch that dial. We are going to be right back.
Flowers.
Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. Oh my gosh, it gets contentious here. Hey, I'm Edward Brown, along with Mike McDowd, Russell Jackman, Stephen Travers, and Jordan Birnbaum. There we go. Got that right. Okay, trivia question number one, guys. Which bone are babies born without? Now you can answer, anyone. No, that's actually, no.
They have skulls.
But Jordan's pointing to his head, and it actually, the head forms. So there's still, there's a soft spot there, but they do have that bone. Russell, what's the answer?
I thought it was something inside the ear.
No, that's where the smallest bone is. No, they're actually born without kneecaps. Isn't that interesting? Yeah. It's just
That's actually something I didn't know.
I didn't know that. Yeah, pretty cool. All right. We are in the studio audience here on Zoom with Jordan and.
Is that the reason why babies can never play catcher?
Yes, that's correct. That is the reason they can't play catcher. All right, that was Jordan Birnbaum here. Hey, Jordan, let's pop on over to you for a minute here. Okay, so you're a guest on the show here, and you're going to be talking about what big biz can learn from big sports about human assets. Explain that to us.
Well, one of the things that's really interesting in corporate America is how people get selected into leadership positions. And one of the ways that my partner and I think is a really productive way to think about it is in terms of sports. So right now, if let's say you're a great salesperson, when you're a great salesperson, that gets you promoted into becoming a sales leader. And then if you're a great sales leader, that gets you promoted into becoming sort of an upper management executive or a C-suite executive. And one of the things that's analogous to is saying to Michael Jordan, hey, you're really good at playing. You know what? Let's try you now as a coach. And they would then take him off of the court and put him into the coach's chair to tell other people how to play well. And then taking it to the next possible, if they had success there, now we're going to put you in charge of drafting the team. And so every time that someone does something successful, they would then they would stop doing that thing and put into a new position. That is effectively what we're doing in corporate America. And so thinking about it from a sports perspective, I think points out the absurdity of this, that we need to let players play and coaches coach and executives executive. And I think corporate America could learn a lot from how sports organizations are run.
Yeah, it's one thing like to take a player out of being a player, but once he retires, maybe he's going to be a good coach, maybe he's not. But I hear what you're saying. It's funny. It reminds me in the old days when I was selling a lot of insurance, I'd go to these conferences and somehow what was really stupid is these big insurance companies. If you did really, really well because you were making so much money, they basically started limiting your territory. as like, oh no, you can't sell any. And it's like, are you kidding? That's stupid. In fact, many times the salespeople made more than the CEO of these huge insurance companies, and it's like, that's great. Yeah, don't take them off the field. So to
Yeah, that's
speak.
like limiting Aaron
Yeah.
Judge's at bats so that he doesn't get a maximum contract next year, which is, yeah, we wouldn't think of that.
Well, that's what the Yankees once did. They limited
Yeah.
Whitey Ford's starts so he wouldn't win 20. His contract would pay him a bonus if he won 20. And Casey Stengel didn't pitch him on the road. He pitched him only at Yankee Stadium. He didn't pitch enough games to win 20.
Wow.
So he'd be 17-4. And then at contract time, oh, you didn't win 20. But, they said, oh, but you'll get your money from the World Series winnings. That's where your bonus comes from. That was what the Yankees said for years.
Let's hear it.
That'll
Here's
put it
Fair
back.
Flood.
What is the last time, and anybody can answer this, we've had a player manager or a coach in any sport, basketball?
Well,
Russell
Michael
or-
Jordan,
or-
I think, was coaching while he was playing, wasn't he? Toward the
Pete
end.
I don't
Rose.
remember that.
Pete Rose.
Bill
Yeah.
Russell did
Rose
it
played
successfully.
and managed.
Yeah, Bill Russell.
But
yeah.
usually the
Well, that's
best
going
players
back
make
to the
terrible coaches
1960s.
because they don't understand what it's like. It's
Yeah.
usually like the heart and soul guys make the best coaches.
There used to be some good ones. Lou Boudreau had success as a shortstop manager for Cleveland. Maybe a few
Usually
others.
the catchers do well, right? Because they can see the whole field. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of the Boone family.
Mm-hmm. I know all of them very well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You do. So Jordan, what is your business? What do you do?
Yeah, I'm an IO psychologist, so I work with companies on people issues and people related matters. So sometimes it's working with leaders on how to figure out how to engage with their teams to maximize their engagement. Because when you get people coming to work because they want to be there, you tend to be more profitable, more productive, retention goes up, safety accidents go down, you're more innovative, customer service or customer satisfaction increases. So there's a lot to be gained from creating the right circumstances at work that will bring out the best in everyone and also make everyone's lives a lot happier. And sometimes one of the things that I try and do is find really effective analogies to convey a better way of doing things. And that's part of what the article that my partner Daryl Kelly and I wrote together about how business can look at sports organizations to understand there's a much better way for us to operate, which is let's keep letting people do the things that they're great at and not stop them.
It just for some reason it reminds me. I mean, just recently, the fact that Klay Thompson got traded to Dallas. I mean, that kind of shakes up the whole internal locker room. I'm sure he was a very liked player, and suddenly now it's like there's this emptiness that they have to fill. I mean, there's a lot of psychology that goes on in sports.
To me, the best example was, many years ago. Remember when Karl Malone and Gary Payton and they created a super team on the Lakers that was just an absolute flop, filled with all these Hall of Famers. And the dynamics between players are far more important. Look at Villanova.
Hey, I mean, you can even say it about the Dodgers right now. I mean, look at how they've had these super teams the last 5 or 6 years and haven't won a World Series.
Well, and look at when they had, from basketball, Oklahoma City had Harden and Westbrook
and Durant.
and Durant. I mean, those are three superstars, and yet they just couldn't put a winning team together.
Well, the Lakers had Wilt Chamberlain, Jerry West, and Elgin Baylor.
Yeah.
And they could not put it together. And then they finally brought in a coach who had a formula. And he had a very distinct and different way of approaching the game. And that was Bill Sharman, who was a real basketball genius. And he came up with a lot of new ideas in basketball. And he put that team together, and they won a world championship. Had a 33-game winning streak.
And speaking of which, Steve,
set a season record for wins and won the NBA title.
And speaking of which, Steve, you just mentioned three of the greatest players in NBA history. Elgin Baylor arguably is one of the greats of all time. I mean, my
Oh,
dad
no
played
question.
college basketball, but Elgin Baylor he doesn't get the credit that he deserves. He was the first guy that could do the reverse dunks. He could do it all. Just
Yeah,
food for thought.
I wrote a Lakers book, so I don't really, he was a little bit before my time because in those days, even though I was following the game, there weren't as many games on TV and weren't as many highlights and what have you. But he was a highlight guy. But that team had disparate personalities. All of these guys had huge egos, and the coaches had huge egos. And they just couldn't put it together until Sharman came along, and he just had. Sharman was kind of the first guy who really changed the dynamic of regular season practices and approach and psychology and conditioning that later you see with Tony La Russa. Yeah.
How do you make the cohesiveness for those superstars? Because Will Chamberlain he was my favorite, and he definitely had an ego.
Well, just very simply, Sharman was one of the first guys to do shoot-arounds in the morning. So they'd have a practice in the morning, and Will Chamberlain would sleep in till noon, and he had to be at the shoot-around, and he didn't like it, but he soon realized he was getting up earlier, and he was sharper, and he was more focused for these games. And he did it because the team was winning, and he saw the benefit of it.
Cool.
There you go.
I wonder.
That totally
I
makes
sometimes
sense.
wonder about John Wooden and why people don't pay more attention to what happened there. That, from my perspective, seems like possibly the greatest accomplishment in the history of organizational psychology. And I feel like we actually underfocus on what happened at UCLA. Steve, do you have any? I imagine you were there for a lot of that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. John Wooden, I can't think of another coach. There are others, and there are other successful coaches of that era, but I can't think of anyone who superseded the times like he did. The racial discrepancies, civil rights, the difference. If you look at the 1960s, and all of a sudden you've got college students who are protesting and wearing their hair long and maybe smoking a little marijuana, and you've got all these issues, and he somehow they put all that aside for practice and for the games, and they played old school basketball, and they were unbelievable.
All right, we're going to continue on. Let's go. We have a hard break here. So here's our next trivia question. This is actually more of a TV type question. With a bunch of guys, you have to ask this question. Which Golden Girls actress actually served in the U.S. Marines? Stay with us. Sports Econ 101. Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. One more time, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Russell Jackman, Mike McDowd, our guests, Steve Travers, and Jordan Birnbaum. And here's our next trivia question. Which Golden Girls actress actually did serve in the U.S. Marines? Mike?
I'll go with B. Arthur.
B. Arthur. Russell, you are correct. B. Arthur, yes. Maud.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, she looked like a Marine.
She seemed tough.
I was going to guess Betty White because she does
cookie there.
everything.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, she was awesome. I tell you, it's funny. I loved her later on as an actress rather than like when she was on the Mary Tyler Moore Show. Okay.
And then there's Maud.
Very good. All right. That's for all you oldies out there. And by the way, here's a little sort of a mini trivia question. Which show did Maude? Like they started the show Maude.
Archie Bunker.
Archie Bunker.
All in the Family. Yes.
All the Family. There we go. All right, so let me shift over here to football for a minute. So Brandon Ayuk holds out, finally gets this monster contract, of which $76 million is guaranteed, and lo and behold, he tears both his MCL and ACL, which I'm guessing he's going to be out for the rest of the season. And
10 months. 10
How many?
months. They
10 months.
Today they just announced it's 10 months off.
10 months. So that puts you pretty much at the start of the season next year.
That's right.
I mean, what do $76 million? Poof. What's the psychology of that, huh?
I'd rather have Ayuk's contract than Deshaun Watson's.
Yeah, well, remind us about his contract.
$250 million, and he isn't worth a dime.
I just got hurt.
Even when he was playing, he hasn't been worth a single penny. At least Ayuk had one game where he caught for 143 yards. Deshaun Watson isn't worth the uniform that he's been placed in, and now he's out for the rest of the season. So you want to? I mean, and he's got.
Was he on your fantasy football team?
No, I have everybody else that's hurt though, so don't worry about that, including Ayuk.
That's right.
Dallas
Well, I mean,
Goedert,
this,
and,
this goes against Russell's argument about the Yankees and the Dodgers spending money. They all spend money. I mean, it's not the Yankees and the Dodgers; it's professional sports.
Not the A's.
It's bad.
The A's.
The A's and Billy Bean are like the one holdout,
Mhm.
and what they did was absolutely incredible. But you saw that they were built for regular season baseball and not for postseason baseball. And this is why the Dodgers might have trouble tonight, and they have had trouble. They just don't have a lot, or not tonight, but in the World Series. They managed to pull it out. I looked at that game 6, and they're starting with a bullpen game. I'm going, oh, you got to be kidding me. Game 6 of a playoff for the World Series, and you're doing a bullpen game. This is all your pitching staff has been reduced to. I mean, they don't have an ace. They have 3 or 4 guys who were aces, all have either hurt or long gone over the hill. I mean, Jack Flaherty, are you kidding me? So the question is, can they just bomb the Yankees out with power like they did the Mets? And I suspect the Yankees have more pitching than that.
Well, there's also the best hitters in baseball in this series: Aaron Judge, Juan Soto, Stanton, and Ohtani. So I mean, you talk about powerhouse hitters. This
Yeah, but
recent memory
no
as far as power hitters.
No question.
And
not only that, the new Yankee Stadium, which was built in 2009, is really a bandbox. It was built for power. It was built to house a team that really hit a lot of homers and was the Bronx Bombers, because that's what the fans love to see.
you could take the long ball, as they say. What are the dimensions of the?
I'm not sure, but I know left field is close. Dodger Stadium, when it was first built, was a real pitcher's park. And then when Tommy Lasorda came over, and they had a lot of offense. They had Steve Garvey and Dusty Baker, Reggie Smith, and a lot of guys who could hit. They brought the fences in, and they've maintained them at that at that length ever since. And the Dodgers have always been a power team. They're a little bit more both pitching and power. You see the Yankees with guys who have, good winning records and ERAs close to 4, because that's the nature of their stadium.
The right field porch
Well,
in Yankee Stadium, many a lefty hitter has feasted on, which makes it even more extraordinary that a right-handed hitter, Aaron Judge, is the one who is breaking all the home run records.
Well, he really has right field power too. He hits a lot of balls to right field. And he's so strong. I mean, he hits balls that look like pop-ups, so they just
keep going.
He's so big and so strong, and they just go up in the air and they land over the right field fence.
My dad,
he's
a Ted Williams fan, and he said, it was a shame that Ted Williams played in the Boston versus the Yankees, and DiMaggio played instead. The Yankees versus
right
Boston.
lefty. Yeah,
there was trade talk of that at one point. It didn't come off. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, I remember hearing about that.
That could have rewritten all the record books.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. The other guy for the Dodgers we got to mention is that Tommy Edman. He's been phenomenal. The who was traded from the Cardinals, and he's come on just out of nowhere and just really.
And this kid,
He's been
Andy
a
Pages,
killer
has
for the
been
Dodgers.
really good. I didn't know who he was. Who's Andy Pages? And he's had some big hits.
Teoscar Hernandez
So-
is who killed the Yankees when they came and visited us earlier this season. So that's who I'm scared of.
Yeah, no, well, they're a talented team. I mean, let's face it. You know, they're good. So,
Hey,
but
and
you know,
speaking of good-
I don't know. I mean, you've got two superstars who have never won a World Series, and you know they're going to try to take it over. It's like Bonds back in 2002 had never won a World Series, and he
That's
took over that World Series.
That still hurt.
And they still lost with 6-0 lead in Game 6.
Oh, please,
Blew it.
you don't remind me. You know, that was a terrible coaching. You know, for taking who they take out or they put in
Russ Ortiz, I believe, and he gave him the game ball on the mound like it's all over. And I'm just looking at that, going, "This is."
I know.
That Angel team really
one of the
could
great
hit.
nightmares of Giants fans still to this day.
No
You
doubt.
know, I still have a nightmare about that. Even though
Because
it won 3 titles since.
that Giant team was better than the teams that won 3 World Series, but the teams that won the
they didn't
series
have
were.
they didn't. No, I disagree. Starting pitching on the 2012 team, way better than anything that was on that 2002 team. And they had Buster Posey, who was having maybe one of the best seasons any player has ever had in the history of baseball. You're talking about MVP, comeback player of the year, batting title, and 3 home runs in the world and a grand slam in the World Series. So no, I'll take the 2012 Giants way over the 2002 Giants.
I'll stipulate to that.
You know what's really cool about those 3 World Series is, you know, 2010 was really cool because it was the first time since, you know, 54 that they won, right? And then 2012, they just everything was a comeback. You know, they should have lost to
Except the World Series, 4-game sweep.
In the
Yeah.
Cincinnati
They
was all they were comebacks.
Cincinnati with all the grand slams and all that, and then St. Louis they come back, and then 2000. Yeah, then they go, you know what? Forget this. We're in World Series. Let's just sweep it to make sure, right? And then 2014, you had the exciting, you know, Baumgartner in the last.
I have a personal touch about that 2012 team. In 2011, I was writing for Gentry magazine, which is like a health and lifestyle magazine in the Silicon Valley, and they said, "We want you to do an article about Barry Zito." I've known Barry Zito since he was at USC. And I found him in the Hollywood Hills, you know, and he was a mess. He was all over the place, and he had lost his confidence. And anyway, I write the article, and I actually showed him the article before I put it to press, and he read it, and he goes, "Oh man, you can't print this." He actually offered to pay me what I was going to be paid for the article if I wouldn't print it. I said, "Barry, I've done the interview. I've got a contract with the magazine. I can't." Anyway, so I printed it. And one of the things I wrote in the article was Barry Zito is 33 years old, which is the same age as Jesus Christ at the resurrection. And perhaps we will see a similar comeback, right? Well, during this period of time, Barry accepted Christ, he was previously not a religious person, and he had met this beautiful young lady from Missouri who led him to the Lord. And it was during this time that he accepted Jesus into his life, and he had a great season in 2012, which included a victory over Cincinnati in those playoffs. He had some key games in the playoffs and World Series. It was a huge comeback. So the next year, I did another article for Gentry. This time I'm interviewing Tim Lincecum. I'm at the ballpark. It's before the season. And we're in that, I guess it's the Stadium Club where we were holding the press conference. And Barry was there. And Barry comes up to me and he says, "I want to thank you for that article, what you wrote about, you know, me being 33, the same age as Jesus." He goes, "That inspired me to my season." I said, "Seriously?" He goes, "That is why I had such," he actually gave me credit, I swear. as gold is my witness. That's what he said to
We
me.
believe you, Steve. I've never known you to be a liar, so I
That's
get
cool.
it.
Yeah, it was really great. I mean, from literally wanting to pay me not to write it or not to publish it, to
Publish it, yeah.
thanking me for inspiring his season.
Yeah.
And I actually had letters to the editor from people saying, I think your article, as the season progressed, there were people who were writing in and said the article you wrote is the reason Barry's having a good year.
Yeah, he definitely. I mean, he was
believe it.
not so good the year before. So yeah, go ahead, Mike.
Hey, I don't, this is a great topic of conversation, but there's another game in America that people love. It's called college football. And we got to talk about it. I got to tell you, man, the Pac-12 is back, baby. Oregon is the #1 team in America. Huh? How about that? I mean, yeah, I know they're in the Big Ten. I get it. But when you look at the top 20, the West only has 3 teams. Oregon's #1, BYU is 11, and freaking Boise State is 17. What does that tell us again about college football? First of all, college football is still king. Georgia's #2 now. Penn State, Ohio State 4. Texas dropped down to 5. But boy, there's been some incredible college football out there. No comment.
Not necessarily played by the USC Trojans, but by other people.
And like you said, what does Cal stand for? Right, constantly always losing. Unfortunately.
Yes. Yes.
All right, guys, you ready to cut to our last commercial break here? All right, here's our trivia question. What was the first product Heinz ever sold? What was the first product Heinz ever sold? And extra credit if you can give me the year, all right? And then now, before we go to our break, I do have to give a stupid joke of the week. So I found a strange lizard on its hind legs telling jokes in Africa. I asked the head tradesman what kind of lizard this was, and he said, he's a stand-up chameleon. Like I said, it's a stupid joke. I just had to give it in there. All right, stay with us. You're listening to Sports Econ 101. We're going to be back with some closing comments. Don't touch that dial. And our thoughts for the day. Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. Last time for today, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Russell Jackman, Michael McDowell, our guests, Stephen Travers, and Jordan Birnbaum. Third trivia question. What was the first product Heinz ever sold? Answer?
Mustard.
Come on. Mustard. No.
Pickles?
Horseradish.
Oh,
Horseradish in 1869. All right, Mike, really quickly. Navy.
You know, our passionate conversation about college football continues. I'm being a little facetious. Army Navy is the biggest story of the year right now. Both academies are undefeated. It's a phenomenal story. Navy plays Notre Dame this weekend, but you know, you got to root for the academies.
Of course. Weren't they like really good in like the 1930s or 40s?
Roger
like that.
Staubach.
Okay.
Yeah, he played for Navy, sure. Okay, you guys ready? Here's our thoughts for the day. So my boss said, hey, dress for the job you want, not for the job you have. So I went in and I dressed like Batman. Figured that was okay. And the grass may be greener on the other side, but at least you don't have to mow it. Consider that, right? All right, Jordan Birnbaum, thank you so much for joining us.
It was so fun. Thanks
We'll have
for
to have
having
you
me.
back on. Yep. Absolutely. And Stephen Travers, welcome back again. Always a pleasure to have you on the show. All right. Audience, tune in next week to Sports Econ 101. We're going to be discussing sports topics from a business perspective and asking more trivia questions. Thanks for listening. On behalf of our team, I'm your host, Edward Brown. We'll see you next week.
Adios.
Army go Navy.
So long. Let me just do this.